Hey y'all, it's Nick from the 3-2 Pitch, and welcome back to the 3-2 Pitch, our podcast where me and Drew go across right now talking about each division in baseball, and eventually once we get through that, we'll be talking about the nice stuff and, the juicy rumors going around, along with, past events like the Nationals World Series run. That's one of the things we want to cover right after we cover each division. This week, we're talking about the NL East. So before we begin breaking that down, Drew, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. I'm in the same spot that I was in last week. Not much has changed, although I will say before we start, and I know this pains you, Nicholas, I am wearing a Yankees hat today. Now that doesn't mean that I'm a Yankees fan, but I think it's fitting that both you and I are wearing New York hats because really New York has been the most devastated region for the COVID-19 coronavirus. Although the numbers are starting to flatten a bit, it's been such a difficult time for New York. So in honor of New York, I'm wearing the Yankees hat. I will not wear this hat when I do my AL East review because I'm not picking them to win the division. So a little teaser for those of you that care. I do not think they will win the division. I have a sleeper team in the AL East, but I wanted to wear it today just because I know you hate the Yankees. So I thought it'd be fun.
Yeah. So, I'm a Mets fan, big Mets fan. We joke about it that I'll be the biggest Mets fan you'll ever meet. I am a diehard Mets fan, but more importantly, I'm a baseball fan. So, like I said previously, one jersey, one hat from each other team. But New York has been really not good for just, the United States and the world in general. Thankfully, things are slowing. And with that, baseball in general is rumored, and there's proposed ideas for it to come back. So before we kick off, like we have the last couple of weeks, I want to ask, a question about this. MLB has proposed things where players, are in isolation, and there's a proposed realignment for the league. What do you think about that, and where is MLB going with this?
It's not happening. I hate to be the bearer of bad news for those of you that want baseball back. I'll say it here: there will be no baseball season. And listen, I hope I'm wrong. I really do. And the truth is if there is no baseball season, these previews that we're doing are going to be for next year, and that's fine. But I just find it. Here's the thing: I find it hard to imagine that Major League Baseball, a season that has not started yet, okay, is going to be able to get not only all of their players, but the entire organizations, as far as the coaches, they're talking about families having to, be quarantined with the players, the scouts, the upper management, all of the medical staff, everyone. I find it hard to believe that they're all going to be willing to kind of stay sequestered in one place for 4 months. The other thing about baseball is I think maybe for a week it would be exciting for people to watch it on TV with no fans and in the blistering heat of Arizona and Florida. I don't see a long-lasting kind of interest in that. I see it kind of fading. I could be wrong. Again, I'm no expert. I'm just, I'm a baseball fan. Okay, number one, I'm a teacher. But the thing that I know about our society is that, yes, they will get excited about something, but baseball is not the kind of sport that I think can endure that long of a period where it's the same stadiums. They're basically playing the same teams over and over again. I mean, just think about 3-4 game series in this type of setting. Maybe the first game of a series, you like it. The second game of a series, you're like, I mean, I just don't know. And then, I mean, then there are so many other factors. There's the heat, of course. There's the idea that how long would they need as far as like a spring training to get ready? I actually think there's a better chance that it just comes back to stadiums, to real stadiums within Major League. Maybe not in the hot spots for COVID-19. Obviously, New York being one of those. Probably you wouldn't see any baseball there. But I see more like having like regions, like maybe you have like I don't know, maybe Philadelphia could be one of the
Midwest.
Regions. Maybe you've got an East, you've got a Midwest, you've got a South, and you've got a West. Okay, so you've got a number of stadiums that could be used in Texas. You've got a number of stadiums that could be used in California. You've got a number of stadiums that could be used in the Midwest. You've got a number of stadiums that could be used in the East, avoiding the hot spots and almost having it like the NCAA tournament where you have these regions. And that's where you would play your season. And then I also think it would have to be a condensed season. I think it would have to be even a more condensed season. And I think you'd have to see lots of double headers for that to work. The reason why I think that would be more doable is because you would take away all the heat factor, which is really going to be a problem. The other thing you could do is you could focus on stadiums that do have a retractable dome. So for example, there's Arizona, Chase Field could be one of those. Okay. I know they were talking about that being one of the stadiums for this new ridiculous realignment they were talking about, but that's Chase Field is a realistic option. Okay. The new Rangers ballpark in Texas, that's a realistic option. Okay. I hate to say this, it's a terrible place to go, but Tampa, Florida, that could be an option. You know, it's a dump, but it's a dome. Okay. Toronto, that could be an option, the Sky Dome. Okay. So you start thinking about that now. Obviously you'd have to get the teams to travel to those areas, but I also think that those areas could be more realistic. So, and then maybe you play your regular season in those regions, and then you have a postseason tournament in one place. That would be nobody cares what I have to say, but if any of you watching this show, you agree with me on that, let me know. That's sort of my proposal. But to answer your question, I know I went long on this. I don't think that's going to happen, the initial proposal.
Yeah, and I am going to agree with you. I don't think the initial proposal is going to stick whatsoever. I think that the big thing I'm thinking of is the players being away from their families for 4.5 months. That comes to mind. I'm like, oh boy. I mean, I've been seeing the argument on Twitter. What if your wife's pregnant? What if you're gonna have a baby during this time? Your isolation for 4.5 months. You're not going to be able to go see them. That's gonna be really devastating. The realignment, 15 leagues. That's something that's interesting to see. Rosters would likely be expanded to more than 29 players. I'm reading. But I like your idea with the regions, and if they would do Arizona and stuff like that, I think that something I'd propose is I was in Arizona. I went to a showcase tournament over MLK weekend. I went to Chase Field. I got a tour of that. I had all the fun stuff. But Arizona is so compact. Like the stadiums are no more than like an hour away from, the center, Phoenix. Mm-hmm. So I think that it's very possible that, if you're going to do the same drive over and over again, that it could be like spring training where you play, one game against one team and then a different team. Yeah, it'd be harder to track. Then that would also keep kind of the excitement around, like you say, a series would get boring. So why not play, a bunch of sets of one games, and just do like the normal spring training. So, that's what I would think. And like you said, I doubt baseball is coming back. These predictions we'll probably have to do new because the service time and stuff, that's another big thing that they're saying a bunch of free agents would still come up. So the teams are going to shuffle, players will become free agents. Mainly the big one this offseason would be JT Realmuto and Mookie Betts. So those are two big names coming up this offseason. So I have to do predictions again. But overall, I also don't think baseball is coming back.
And just to add to what you're saying, these predictions that we're doing, and we hope you guys are enjoying these predictions. These are also meant for you to have something to watch during this time, because we're all looking for something. And feel free to submit your predictions and what you think, because yes, this is a fluid situation. I think we all know that it's changing every single day, and we just don't know what's to come next. Now, just to add on also, if you were, and I know this isn't a basketball and hockey podcast, but if you were going to ask me which sports I do think would come back, I do think that basketball and hockey might be more realistic to come back for postseason tournaments. That I do. And I think they could do that, like basketball could do Las Vegas and hockey could do Canada or North Dakota, like they've been talking about. The problem with baseball is that you just can't kind of get the regular season going the way they would like at this point, since it hasn't started yet. And it wouldn't be the first time that baseball lost a season. Like we've talked about, 1994, they lost the World Series. I believe it was 1918 with the Spanish flu. I believe we lost some of the season. And then there were years during World War II where baseball seasons were lost. So it wouldn't be the first time that it happened. And it may not be the last time that it happens. This is the new world that we live in, with all of the, with the overpopulation, and with all of the different, places in the world that are eating different types of exotic foods, and, the pollution and global warming. I mean, this is, sports has definitely taken a backseat to what has happened. So.
Yeah, for sure. And if you guys are also looking for more things to watch, definitely right now, something I really enjoy MLB The Show. That's that's like the only video game I truly play. And I'm streaming that live on Twitch every day this week. I'm gonna be streaming live on Twitch at Nick_crafts. That was my gaming tag before I came to this and created this channel with Drew, of course. But if you want to watch that, and also the big thing going on right now, the MLB The Show has a 30-player tournament. Each team in the MLB is being represented. Right now, the person I have winning, Joey Gallo, is 4-0. I mean, he has the glitchy Joey Gallo player card. I don't know if you've watched any of it. Like I said, I'm big into MLB The Show, so this is right up my alley. I'm watching these games. Joey Gallo owns Blake Snell in real life. He hit a dinger off him last night. So, it's really nice to see these players come out of this super competitive realm of Major League Baseball and come out, be their own, play this, play MLB The Show, have fun, interact with each other, put on a show for us, commentate. You get to see what they're like in real life, and that's what I really like. That Trevor May was able to bring this all together and work together. So that I'm really fan. Before we get started, I'm going to read the one lonely comment below. Your comments will be featured in next week's episode. We had a comment from Tom right here. Tom says, "Great video. You deserve more views." Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom. We appreciate you.
we appreciate you. What?
We need about 1,000 more of you.
Yeah, we need about 1,000 more Toms. So comment below. Tell your friends about this. Share the podcast around. I'm doing my part. Follow me on Twitter at the32pitch. I'm really getting out there. I'm in the community. I'm talking every day. Spend a lot of time. DM me, comment below. I'll respond to you. I love talking baseball. That's why I really like podcasts. It's probably my favorite thing I make on this channel. All right. So here we go. The NL East and our NL East preview. Crazy division. Last year, this was probably one of my top divisions I was looking forward to. Was kind of slow throughout parts of the season. We had a big underdog in Washington. They started really like 12-21. Of course, came back to win the World Series. Like we're saying, we're going to talk about the Nationals and their postseason run and what they got to win the World Series, their path. So after we get through the AL East, that may be the first thing we do. But definitely quite a few underdogs in this division. 5th place, who you got, Drew?
It's a really interesting division. I will say it's not, to me, I don't think it's going to be the best division by any stretch in the National League. I've already said that NL Central to me is going to be a much more competitive division, and I would not be surprised to see 2 wildcard teams come out of the NL Central. Having said that, when you look at this division, there's a word that comes to my mind when I think of this division, and I think of the word that comes to my mind is potential. Now, the word potential, what that means when you look it up in a dictionary is the opportunity that something could happen, or the likelihood that something may happen. And unfortunately, that's really where I think this division, what it comes down to. I think it's a lot of pretenders and not a lot of contenders. We'll get to that in a moment. I will start with my 5th place team, and it's probably the easiest choice of all the divisions. It's the Miami Marlins. Again, this is a team that is, they're truly in a rebuild. Like, if you could, define the word rebuild, it would be the Miami Marlins. And unfortunately, it's taken a lot longer than they really would even want to, to actually say, because Derek Jeter, I know, has come in and has made some promises, but I mean, his first year coming in, they get rid of their 3 best players. Obviously, they get rid of Stanton. they get rid of Yelich and they get rid of Osuna. So right off the bat, there you're unloading your talent. Okay, and those were young players that were still had careers ahead of them. Obviously, Yelich has turned into an MVP caliber player, and Stanton, although his injury problems, is still a force. And Osuna, to me, is a great player. So they got rid of their talent. And now when you look at what they have, they just have a lot of young players. Now, Nicholas is more of the young prospect kind of, analyst. So I'm sure you'll be able to get more in depth on these guys. When I look at their roster, guys like Brian Anderson, Corey Dickerson, Jonathan VR, Brandon Kinsler, who's going to be their closer, and Sandy Alcantara, they all, to me, are, again, young players that are, within their first few years, that are still trying to find their way. They did bring in Jesus Aguilar to play first base. Again, we'll see if the season, if the season even kind of gets off the tarmac here. I do like, there's one player that I like, and I had a chance to kind of see him a little bit, and that's Lewis Brinson. And Lewis Brinson is their right fielder, and he's got some moxie. He's got a little bit of sort of energy and passion. I know he's gotten into some arguments with players, and I know he had a little issue with the Giants last year, where he was showing up Madison Bumgarner. But who doesn't show up Madison Bumgarner? He always feels like everyone does. But looking at their roster, yes, they have young players. They have a few veteran guys. They have Matt Joyce, and he may be able to give them a little bit of, and Sean Rodriguez might be able to give them a little bit of that veteran presence. But for the most part, this is a fifth place team. They're not going to compete in this division. They're hopefully going to get better, but I don't see them competing in this division for another 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, for sure. And unfortunately, I have the Marlins at fifth place too. But their whole rebuild thing, I think, started right when, unfortunately, Jose Fernandez tragically passed away. I think if he wasn't on that boat, he was still alive. I think the Marlins probably, to be honest, winning the division right now, which is hard to say as a Mets fan. But with tragic events, that kind of led to a full-fledged rebuild. The Marlins, fifth place. Alcantara, he was strong throughout spurts of last year. He kind of destroyed me in fantasy. Just had to get a complete game shutout against the Tigers in his last start of the week, which kind of kicked me out of the playoffs. Which was I was winning too, so that was like frustrating. Caleb Smith, he's a young player. I'm kind of right on the fence with him. I think that I don't know if he'll be able to bounce back and have a strong season again. Pablo Lopez and Jordan Yamamoto, those look like they have some solid potential. I think that those two guys, if they can get it together, get a little more experience, I think those two are going to be really have a real bright future, especially Jordan Yamamoto. I think that he's going to be great for the Marlins. I'm a real big fan of Ryan Stanek. That's what I'm trying to say. I think he's going to be nice. You guys do have the switch pitcher, Pat Venditti, on your team now. Jorge Alfaro, nothing big. Aguilar, I think, would be a great addition that you could probably trade at the deadline for some pieces. If he can go back to Milwaukee for him, hit like 37 home runs in the season, I think you have a great player in him. Isan Diaz, Brian Anderson, Lewis Brinson. I think those three guys are the three young players to look out for the Marlins this year. Brian Anderson, I think, is a solid candidate to break out 335 homers. I think he's great. Lewis Brinson, I think, is going to take a huge step up from what he was last year. So I think that those two guys, Isan Diaz came up last year. He hit a home run off DeGrom, I believe it was, in his first game. So I think that those three guys have great potential. The Marlins, I think, are finally taking that step in the right direction, bringing in VR, bringing in Dickerson. I think if those two players can play well, they not only provide some trade value at the end of the season, they also provide you with that veteran role that you guys have lost within Curtis Granderson retiring and Starlin Castro leaving in free agent and signing with the Washington Nationals. Fifth place, Marlins. That's who I got. Nothing big there. No surprises there. That may very well be the only thing we agree on in this division.
And yes, it's a tough division, 1 through 4. But I'm curious to see what you got, Nicholas. This is where this separates the men from the boys, as they say.
Yeah, this division is right up my alley, and I mean I can really throw around teams. So fourth place, who you got? This is probably where we start to disagree.
Okay, um, you're gonna hate me, Nicholas. Yeah, and when I say hate, I mean hate. Like the hate is real. But I do want you to understand my reasoning for this before I
Go
go
for it.
ahead with my fourth place team. 2 weeks ago, when Noah Syndergaard was in the Mets rotation, I had this team second place and possibly contending for a wild card. As of today, Nick, they are my fourth place team in the division. And I only say that because when you look at the rest of, again, when you look at the rosters in this division, while Washington has taken a step back, and I'll talk about that in a moment, because I believe Rendon was that important to their lineup. Okay. The Mets are not going to be able to compete with a 1-2 punch of Jacob deGrom and Marcus Stroman. It's not going to be enough. It's not going to be enough. And I know you might say Porcello and Matz and Waka, and who knows about Waka, right? But and then when you look at and then okay, on top of that, Edwin Diaz having such a roller coaster season last year. Okay. Yes, they have Pete Alonso. Yes, they have another year of Robbie Cano. Yes, they have Jeff McNeil. Yoenis Cespedes, I'll believe it when I see it. Brandon Nimmo, okay, great. Conforto, okay. They've got some pieces, and again, having that experience and that nice push that they had at the end of last year was, and the key word is was, going to give them the momentum that they needed to be able to compete in this division this year. Unfortunately, the loss of Thor is just monumental. He was a rock. DeGrom, of course, was their best pitcher, okay, and still is. But Thor, what a warrior, literally a warrior. And such a, you and I, we got a chance that one day a couple of years ago to watch him to pitch live, and we sat right near the bullpen. Just an absolute gladiator out there. And the dominating stuff and that great sort of attitude that he has, and the bulldog mentality, not wanting to be taken out of games. Some people may say that might help the Mets to have that sort of attitude off of the roster. I disagree. I think now if you had a 1-2-3 punch of DeGrom, Syndergaard, and Stroman, now we're talking. But I don't see it. I think Dylan Betances will help the bullpen. I'm a big fan of Betances. I think having Familia back will help again for another year. But it's just too much for them to overcome. So while I like their pieces, I like Wilson Ramos. Jed Lowry, he's old, but he's going to help. Marisnik off the bench might help. This is a fourth place team, Nicholas, and it's going to be a good division. So they may be a 500 team, but they're a fourth place team.
Yeah, I disagree, obviously.
Of course you do.
Of course I disagree. And, maybe a little Mets bias where I end up putting them eventually. I'll get to them. But fourth place, maybe for a little bit of memes draft night, Mark, you may know. But, I kind of believed it last year. I'm going to believe it again this year. The Philadelphia Phillies. I have them in a fourth place team. Their main reason why is their rotation. Nola took a massive step back last year. Nothing close to a Cy Young candidate. I think we can get close to where it was last year, but I don't think, if anything, he's going to go back. He's going to go back for it. I think he's going to take another step back. Wheeler, that's a big wild card for y'all. If Wheeler can, come together and put a season together and turn into that Garrett Cole-like figure that we've seen the potential, is be dominant. He's like exactly like Garrett Cole. The pitches, the velocity, the everything. Zach Wheeler is Garrett Cole 2.0, but the matter is, can he figure out in Philadelphia? Can Joe Girardi and the staff figure out Wheeler? Arrieta, 1 year older. He got injured last year. I don't think he'll do good. Zach Eflin, Spencer Howard, Nick Pavetta. What is this rotation? after you're 1-2, it takes a massive step back. Okay, 1-2-3. You're 4-5. You have practically nobody there. Though you could probably throw out, JT Realmuto, and you could probably pitch better than your 4-5 players. I mean, your rotation is just, I can't trust it through a full season. I mean, if we were playing, one game every couple of days, then yeah, sure. But I mean, we're playing, we're going to end up playing a bunch of double headers. Your rotation is going to get completely eaten up. I mean, so is every rotation, but I think the Phillies, they lack so much more depth than other teams. I mean, Sir Anthony Dominguez, he's going to have Tommy John again this year. I mean, your bullpen too is just very weak. You brought in Swarzak, but yeah, Swarzak, we saw what happened when he came over to the Mets. He just got completely eaten up. I mean, your lineup, that is your strong spot. Rio Muto, Hoskins, Harper. You guys bring in Gregorius. You have Gene Segura. Will Scott Kingery step up? McCutchen, will he come back strong from his season-ending injury? And then kind of your Roman Quinn, will he be a strong center fielder for y'all? But, I mean, I just can't trust this Phillies pitching staff, for an entire season. I think pitching wins you games. Without pitching, you're going to lose. And the pitching is a big hole I see in this Phillies, Phillies roster, which is why I am putting them as 4th place.
I strongly disagree. And I'll get to that in a moment.
Yep. All right. Well, it's good to disagree sometimes. 3rd place, who you got?
All right. This one was even more painful for me because because I love this team. I love this team. I what they did last year was just, I mean, it was so magical. It was it was inspiring to see, especially when they beat the Dodgers. I just brought a twinkle to my eye to see what they did to Clayton Kershaw in that Game 5, and to kind of just put a wrench in the Dodgers' plan of taking over the world. It was just so fun to watch, and then to see what they did to just to absolutely hammer the St. Louis Cardinals into submission, and then one of the best World Series I've ever seen. And in hindsight, probably, think about if the Astros would have won that World Series and then all of that would have come out. Think how painful that would have been. Just it was so wonderful to see them get taken to them in a Game 7 at home. But having said all of that, it's a new season, and with everything that has happened with COVID-19, with losing Anthony Rendon, with some changes within their roster and age, I am going to go ahead and say, and again, this is partly also, I have some other reasons behind this that I'll talk about later, but I do think that the Washington Nationals will end up 3rd place in this division. I really do. I think Scherzer has shown that he's injury prone. I think Strasburg, should come back strong. I don't see why not. I think the layoff will help him, if anything else. I think Corbin showed, who he was last year. He's not really a frontline starter. He did come out of the bullpen and really help them in the postseason. Anibal Sanchez is Anibal Sanchez. And Joe Ross as your 5th starter, who knows really what you get with Joe Ross. The bullpen, with Doolittle and Hudson and Will Harris, they showed up last year. They really did, especially Daniel Hudson. But again, to me, they're not dominating. And then, again, Zimmerman, who knows what his future is? He's still on the roster, but we don't know. Especially if this year gets squashed, he probably won't be back. You've got, again, the loss of Anthony Rendon at 3rd base is just monumental. He was such a huge part of their lineup, such a calming force. But you've got Turner and Soto. They bring in Starlin Castro, who's definitely a veteran kind of guy that can help. Victor Robles in center field, probably platooning with Adam Eaton and Michael A. Taylor. I actually think that what we saw last year may have been more of an anomaly than anything else, where they just got hot. And that is no disrespect to them, what they did and how they ended up winning the World Series, because there is no such thing as a fluky World Series team. I never believe that. With all the season, how long the season is. You might see a fluky game or two, but you'll never see a fluky World Series champion. But I think it may have been more of a mirage what they did than sort of the ongoing. And I think they're going to come back down to earth a little bit. I think they will be also around 500, which is where I thought they were going to be last year. Uh, and with the talent in this division, while I don't think it's the best division, I think there's a lot of talent in this division, uh, and especially a lot of young talent, which I'm going to get to in a moment, which I think is so important. I think young talent is everything. This team does have it with Turner and Soto, but I don't think they have enough. So I see them in third place. I see them competing, probably finishing with an 81 and 81. Well, I shouldn't even say that, a 500 record.
Who knows? Maybe every team will end with a 500 record at 0-0. You never know yet.
Exactly.
But we're actually going to agree with this one. I also have the Washington Nationals in third place. And the reason for that is going to be the loss of Rendon and the age of Max Scherzer. And, and there's going to be fallouts also to this team last year. Scherzer, he was injured throughout last year. He did have a step back. I don't think Scherzer is going to be strong again. I think he's probably be right around where he was last year. I don't think he's no longer going to be that Cy Young pitcher. He's not going to be, under 3 ERA. I mean, he'll be hovering right around 3, but I think he's going to have a 3 ERA for the rest of his career. He's going to start losing velocity. He's become easier to hit. So I think Scherzer, he's definitely taking a step back. I mean, along with injuries, and injuries is the big thing I have for this team, is Patrick Corbin. He was injury prone. Strasburg, he's been injury prone. They didn't have injuries last year. That was the same thing I felt with Thor. I was like, okay, well, the Mets have a healthy, rotation this year. Something's going to hit them next year. And that's kind of the same way I feel about this Nationals team. Something's going to hit, Corbin or Strasburg this year. And then, their bullpen's so weak. It was really good bringing back Daniel Hudson. That was probably the biggest move you guys, and along with keeping Steven Strasburg. But I think overall, granted, Rendon leaves, you keep Strasburg. I think Hudson was the biggest move you had to make. Because if you lose Hudson, I think you guys maybe fall to fourth place. I mean, Doolittle, he kind of was stalled for the first half. Second half just imploded all over himself. Will Harris was another great addition. But, I mean, just your hitting takes kind of a step back without Rendon. Yeah, you add Thames, you add Castro. Will Kiaboom come up this year and even get some playing time? Bring back Hallie Kendrick was also another big move. As Drupal Cabrera, keeping him. So, the Nationals made tons of new moves. They have practically an entire new slate in their infield, except Trey Turner. And, of course, Trey Turner, another big player. If you have him healthy for an entire season, you guys will probably finish above third place. He goes out. We saw what happened when he was out in the first part of the season. They were absolutely terrible. When Turner's on the field, the Nationals are proven to be a good team. Whenever he's not on the field, he's bad. Juan Soto had a great season last year. Man, is it disappointing as a Mets fan to watch Soto and Acuna in this division for practically forever. Victor Robles, I think, is a great young player. He's going to have a great season, I think. He's going to just continue to build upon his season. But, Adam Eaton, he's going to get older. I think that losing Harper was definitely a hit for y'all. But I think that your young players in Kiaboom, he is one player to watch out for. I think he can play solid for you guys. And, yeah, I'm not a believer in the Washington Nationals for a second year in a row.
It's nice to agree.
Yeah, I know. But we're going to go back to disagreeing here. Second place, who you got?
So when I look at teams in Major League Baseball, over just because I'm a big baseball historian, when I look at teams, I look at teams that bring in a high-priced free agent. And usually the first year is rough. It takes some time. It takes time for that player to get acclimated to the city. It takes time for the city to get acclimated to that player. It's a big change. There's a lot of pressure. The pressure with free agent contracts is always really comes down to that first year, because you expect that player to do so much. One of the most incredible seasons I ever saw in my time was in 1993, and that was, again, you were just a thought at that point. But Barry Bonds came to the Giants from Pittsburgh as a free agent. He was the first really big name free agent that the Giants brought in, especially an outfielder. and I think he's the last really big name outfielder they brought in as a free agent since. His first year, one of the most incredible, amazing seasons I've ever seen. He hit 46 homers, hit 336, and had 125 RBIs. And this was pre-steroids. So go back and look at that 93 season. He was a toothpick. So that was incredible. But other than that, you look at free agent contracts, you look at Giancarlo Stanton, his first year in New York. You look at other guys that have sort of succumbed to the pressure of a first year contract. Albert Pujols, even though he was an older player in Anaheim, it just takes time, and sometimes it's not until the next year or even the third year of a contract where the player really starts to make it. So that leads me to my second place team, which I think will be the Philadelphia Phillies this year, and I think that they are a team that has been sort of quietly accumulating talent, okay, especially in their starting rotation. And I think their starting rotation is the strength of the team. So I actually disagree with you wholeheartedly. I think they've got a great mixture of youth, sort of, mid-level experience, and then real experience. When you talk about Aaron Nola as your ace, you talk about Zach Wheeler, who again has been through some arm troubles. He's been through a couple trades. I think he really showed up last year and looked like a lot like what he could be. And Jake Arrieta, who to me is still a bulldog. I think he's still pretty solid for a third starter. And then you've got Zach Eflin and Spencer Howard running, to finish off your rotation. Their bullpen is definitely going to be a weak spot for them. But I do really think that having Real Muto back for another year, to have that continuity with his pitching staff. And then you talk about Hoskins, Kingery, Segura, Gregorius, Harper. That to me is a pretty strong lineup, that especially in that ballpark. Although, again, are they going to play in that ballpark this year? Probably not. Although Philadelphia might be one of the ballparks that, if my plan gets approved, which it won't, that could be used, because I think Philly's a region that hasn't been hit as hard as New York yet. But anyways, that's another story. But that lineup is strong. And then again, like you said, if McCutchen can come back, and then don't forget about Jay Bruce, Neil Walker, Logan Forsythe. So they've got some punch off that bench. I think it's Philly's time to really go above and beyond. I think Joe Girardi is going to make a huge difference in that locker room. I think, obviously, as you'll see with the Giants, Gabe Kapler is just not a great manager. I think he comes in strong, but he kind of lost his team, especially going to the bullpen when no one was in the bullpen the first weekend of his career as a manager. That was 2 years ago. I just don't think that, Kapler was the man for that job. And I think Girardi is. I think players respect Girardi. I think Harper will respect him. I think Hoskins will have a good year. I think Gregorius, having that, connection with Joe Girardi will help. I think Gene Segura is a great player. I think Kingery has a lot of potential. I like Hector Neris as their closer. I think they've got something here. Are they going to win the division? No, because my next team is above and beyond the best team in this division, and I don't think it's close. And I'll talk about that in a moment. But I do think that they could compete for the wild card spot with, the two teams out of the NL Central and with your Arizona or San Diego in the NL West, which, again, I don't think those teams are going to be as competitive. I think it'll be, the NL Central and then possibly Philly, or you might see Washington competing for that last wild card spot.
Yeah, getting a new manager was probably the biggest thing that the Phillies did this offseason, along with the Mets. I think it was really fun to watch Gabe Kapler and Mickey Callaway, by far the two worst managers in baseball, face off against each other. I was the one thing I hated when Gabe Kapler got fired. I was like, dang it. No longer do the Mets have an advantage. But Gabe Kapler was horrendous. Now it's the Giants' problems. I actually have friends that are Giants fans that think Gabe Kapler is the greatest manager. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Have you even watched this guy?
Well,
I don't know.
well, time will tell on that, but
Yeah, he's gonna be horrendous, which is why I have the Mets as a second team. I think that if they still had Thor, they may have been sneaky candidates to win the division. I'm straight up saying no bias there. But I mean, I think that their rotation is going to be so strong this year, and I still think it's going to be strong without Thor. The reason why is Steven Matz. I think Steven Matz is the big wild card.
hmm.
I think that I think with the new pitching coach, that's another big thing that I think that, which is why I still have him at second place. Bringing in Luis Rojas, bringing in Jeremy Hefner, who is the former Twins pitching coach. I think that he can easily help Porcello, Awaka go back to their all-star Cy Young forms. I think Matz is going to improve with him. DeGrom is already amazing. DeGrom is the greatest pitcher in New York in baseball. Don't argue with that. Until Cole can prove that he'll be good this year, DeGrom is by far the best pitcher. I don't know why people think Cole. That is ridiculous. But I think that that even Stroman is going to do even better with Hefner. I think Hefner is also going to help Diaz, Familia, who, by the way, had off-season workout things. Familia lost like 40 pounds. Diaz had like a full off-season routine. So I mean that these guys are going to be dominant. Getting Gesellman back, getting Betances added in. Lugo was solid. If he doesn't get moved to rotation, Brad Brock, like I said, Justin Wilson was strong when he wasn't injured. So I mean that this rotation, bullpen was projected to be the number one bullpen in baseball. I mean, this year. I mean, after they got Betances. You cannot see a worse year from Familia. Can't see a worse year than Diaz. I am truly a believer that the Mets could have won at least 500 or 100 games, 500 games, maybe a little less, but they would have easily won the division if Edwin Diaz single-handedly didn't blow 20 games. I mean, the Mets bullpen was just horrendous last year. I think that's going to be definitely a step off. Pete Alonso, he's going to slump this year, but I can go same thing with second year. Diaz and Cano, their second year in New York is going to be much better, in my opinion. I think Cano is going to come into form. Jeff McNeil during spring training was hitting like 562. This man's a stud. He's going back to the contact ways, which is what the Mets need. When he started hitting for power, he lost the contact. I think he is a strong candidate to hit 340, have the highest average for a bunch of years. Ahmed Rosario had a strong season last year. He had that big step up that the Mets have been looking for. Getting Nimmo back. He was injured last year. Nimmo is such a strong player. He is the thing that pulls. He's the player that pulls everyone together as the Mets. I mean, he is the hustle. I mean, he's just everything. If Nimmo caught that ball, like you said, or when in our game we went to, we were talking about it. Thor may well had a no-hitter that game we went to. Yep. I mean, he was just that dominant. Cespedes, like you said, believe it when I see it. But J.D. Davis, strong player, and Conforto, of course, can have even a better year. He's only been, on the up and up. Continue that trend until he gets older. So, like I said, I am still a believer in the New York Mets. Granted, they lost Thor, but if there's no season, that's even better for the Mets because you know what? Noah Syndergaard, he has a Tommy John surgery. He's only missing, like a month of the season, which he basically had with hand, foot, and mouth. At least it's not hand, foot, and mouth again. So now I'm happy. I mean, it's the Mets of all teams. New York is injury prone, and hand, foot, and mouth apparently is one of the things. So, like I said, Mets second place in the NL East. Definitely a team that, I could even still see them winning division. But, probably not. Low chances. It's like an outstretch that, okay, Waka, Matz, Porcello, Stroman all need to have, 3 ERA flat. Then they would do it. But first place, of course, we're actually going to agree again, the Braves. Why do you got them here?
Well, first of all, before I go to the Braves, I think the Mets have a chance of winning the division the same as I have of growing 5 inches and playing in the NBA. But anyways, I think you're a little bit senile at your young age. But I'll give you a break. You're a big fan, and you've done a good job with these shows. So, anyways, moving on. I've got 2 words for you. World Series. I think this is the year for the Braves. I really do. I do not think that this is just a division-winning team anymore. I think they are ready for that next step. And whether it's this year or next year, I really do. Because this team is absolutely stacked, unbelievably stacked. And they have so much more depth than anyone else, I think, in the National League, other than the Dodgers. So I really, I'm a big believer in this team. They lost Josh Donaldson. So what? They bring in Marcell Ozuna. They bring in Will Smith. one of the best closers in the National League to set up Mark Melancon. And I wouldn't be surprised if those two swap before the year is over, along with Shane Green or even Luke Jackson. Their starting rotation to me is definitely not the strength of the team, but it's a damn good starting rotation. When you talk about Soroka, when you talk about Fried, when you talk about Hamels, Fultonevich, and Newcomb. It's a wonderful, wonderful, full of depth starting five rotation. And their lineup, I mean, what can you say? Their lineup is just so good. When you talk about Darno, when you talk about Freeman, when you talk about Albies, Swanson, Ozuna, Inciarte, and Ozuna Jr., along with Nick Markakis, Hechavarria, Tyler Flowers, Adam Duvall. I mean, these guys are all coming off the bench. This team is stacked, and the best thing about this team is that they're young. Their core is so young, and I mean, Acuna Jr. and Albies, they're only going to get better. Acuna Jr. is a he's an MVP waiting to happen. When you think about him as a player, it's really unbelievable to think just what his what his ceiling is. I always look at a ceiling. Yes, his average, of course, I think his average can get a lot better. I do. But when you talk about a guy that, I mean, first of all, when you think about his career, he's a career 285 hitter, okay? But he's got so much power. He's got so much energy. He's just, I think the one thing at age 22, the thing that he needs to work on is his attitude. He needs to not be as emotional up there at the plate, but he is such a force. And he's one of those guys that he's just going to get better and better and better. And he will be the face of the league within the next, year or two. He's going to be, beyond Mike Trout, he's going to be the best player in Major League Baseball. I think Harper, we all know, has taken a step back in that regard. Okay. But this team is going to compete. And I think, I would not be surprised if we're talking about, NLCS Game 7 against the Dodgers. Maybe it's in Phoenix, Arizona, or wherever the hell it is. And I see the Braves taking the pennant. I really do. I don't think the Dodgers are strong enough. I think they're great, but I don't think they're strong enough. I think this team is the cream of the crop in the National League. And I think they've got a great chance to win it all with the people that they've brought in. I think a big wild card for this team is Cole Hamels. Is Cole Hamels going to be, is he going to be sort of just a 4-5 starter, or is he going to step up and really show, what he was able to do with Chicago and at times, and, going back to his Philly days where he really was, a force. But I see this team winning 100 games again in a condensed season. I see them easily winning this division. I don't think it's going to be close. I think they win the division by 6 games.
Yeah, I agree. First place. The one thing that I look at with the Braves last year was their rotation. Soroka came out of nowhere. Soroka is probably the reason they won the division last year, was his strong season. And yet I have a friend that thinks Soroka should have won Rookie of the Year. Like, I can't believe how crazy he is for that. But anyways, Soroka, along with Alonso, they're going to have a step back sophomore year. That's kind of proven throughout baseball. Cole Hamels, will he be healthy? Will he be strong? I mean, I think he's solid. Max Fried, Fultonevich, Newcomb. I mean, this rotation is super young with Cole Hamels being that one veteran. But I mean, like Fultonevich and Sean Newcomb, they both had terrible years last year. I mean, it's one of those things that, like, which is why I think that the Mets or Nationals even have a stronger shot to come closer to the Braves, is because of their rotation. One big thing that they really improve, which is what gives them this lead, and big, is their bullpen. Bringing in Will Smith, getting back Shane Green, bringing back Chris Martin, Darren O'Day, Mark Melancon at the deadline. I mean, their rotation is so much improved. Their catchers even improved. Travis d'Arnaud coming to torment the Mets again. Once he left, he was just great in Tampa last year. So that's a great player. Freeman, of course, is going to be good. Albies is going to get better. I mean, losing Donaldson at third base was almost better for you guys, because now you have the young Austin Riley or Johan Camargo. Camargo was really solid in 2018 before Donaldson got here, but because he got moved to the bench when Donaldson got here, he kind of struggled. I think using a player like Camargo there and bring in Ozuna. Ozuna's better placed in this outfield that can use Markakis off the bench. Of course, Markakis, the veteran player, has approaching 3,000 hits, if not, really close or over it. Forget what I mean. In Ciarte, he's going to be solid. I think he's going to step back. However, I think Markakis could very well come in for Ciarte, and then Acuna, of course. The big thumper in that lineup. And the stat that I just spent a couple of minutes looking up is batting average and balls in play. 2020, he was hitting like 335, 343 on batting average and balls in play. Mm-hmm. I mean, Acuna strikes out kind of a ton. If I'm looking at his stats right now, his K percentage is like 25%. He's striking out 1 out of 4 times. That is the big issue with these young hitters, is they strike out a lot. But Acuna, whenever he puts the ball in play, good things happen. So if he can just go put more balls in play, I think he's going to be a great hitter. Definitely a player that could be a 50-50, first one in a Major League Baseball, hit 50 homers, steal 50 bases. I mean, I drafted him first overall in fantasy over Mike Trout because, of course, I think that he is just that good. I think that the Braves they're kind of too good not to win the division right here, especially if Fultonevich and Newcomb can bounce back. Will Smith's going to be great in that bullpen. The Braves definitely locking down the division. I mean, Acuna and Albies in this division, along with Soto. The Mets are not in the bright spot for a while.
The Mets are in the wrong division.
They are in the wrong division. Like, why can't Atlanta and, like, Pittsburgh switch or something,
That's not how it works.
I know. I wish. Thank you all so much for watching this episode of The 3-2 Pitch on the NL East. Lots of hype going into last season, bringing in Harper, switching teams. And, this year I think it still has a solid hype. Not as much, of course, as last year. Definitely be a strong division, of course. I want to thank Drew for coming out today again. Showing up every day, keeping these podcasts going, allowing me to talk baseball, a thing I really want to do an absolute ton. Drew wants to say a message for you before we end this real quick.
I hope all of you out there continue to stay safe, of course, and understand that this is not going to be easy for baseball fans. It's a very tough time for us. We all know, that there are possibilities moving forward. I think the one thing that you can do as a fan, okay, is try to be realistic about this and think again about the people in the cities that are suffering throughout this pandemic. But also, like, I'm going to give myself some credit. I felt like I was creative with my idea. Come up with an idea. Come up with an idea that you feel would work. If you love baseball, this is the time to be creative and proactive and get it out there on social media. In fact, comment to our podcast today and let us know what you think. Beyond just the predictions of the teams, we want to know what you would do. What would be your plan for having some sort of a major league season this year? So we want to hear from you guys. And thank you again for participating and being part of our show.
Yeah, for sure. Comment below, because who knows? Maybe we'll blow up in the next episode and your ideas splattered all over and you have investors coming to us, It's a great way to get your idea out there. Use Twitter, use Instagram, use Facebook, use YouTube, use Twitch, anything out, get it out to me. I love talking baseball. I'm doing a bunch of different things to stay active, do things. My setup, the new setup, is coming really soon. Hopefully I can get it out there by, end of this year, next year, moving into. But, I mean, we all have tons of time. Why not be creative? Come out. I'm being even more creative than ever. I'm streaming on Twitch, talking on Twitter. I'm trying to get this program business, podcast out there for everyone to watch. It's a big thing that I really like doing. It's one of my dream things, is talking baseball. I am a big baseball fanatic. Love baseball. Love the Mets, in general, like you've heard us say. Follow us on Twitter at the 3-2 Pitch. Twitch, I'm streaming MLB The Show daily this week at Nick_Crafts every morning. So probably around, 8, 9 o'clock Pacific, I will be going live sometime between there. And then streaming until I have something to do. So I'll probably be around 11 o'clock, couple hours. Come stop by, come talk. Really appreciate it. Twitter, always talking there. Hit me a follow. Lots of things. That's where I get all my news, and that's where I'll be reacting to news right as it happens, keeping you guys updated on the streams, on the YouTube channel, along as Instagram. I think we're going to start branding an Instagram together, and maybe even a Facebook come along. So thank you all so much for watching.
And we'll see you next week for the AL West.
Thanks for watching.